Yes, 3, 2, 1 on a Friday evening. I'm loving it. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session of EventFUL Bytes. So I can't believe this is the fifth session. We started way back in the month of March with all the amazing virtual panelists whom I had the privilege to host. And of course, today's panel is no less interesting, trust me. So you better get your tea, coffee, or whatever Friday drink you want to enjoy. Please feel free to do so. I'm Shikha, Head of Marketing at Jio Platforms, and I'm going to be your host, in bracket, ghost for today's session. Before we jump into today's session and introduce my panelists for today, I would really like to spend a couple of minutes on the topic of communities, because this is the topic for our today's discussion. And to be honest, I keep on repeating this phrase from a well-known marketer who is now a CEO of gtmpartners, Sangram Vajre, who had once said that without a community, you are a commodity. Trust me, whenever I hear the word community, his phrase always keeps on ringing in my ears, and then it holds so true to the depth of it that I really felt the urge to pick up this particular topic and have all the seasoned community leaders onto this panel. So virtual communities, they have blossomed in recent years. Sometimes they are unaffiliated with an organization, but more often than not, they are established and nurtured by a company to support a specific business goal. But in today's panel, we do have individual community leaders who are running their own community, and you could say seasoned professionals who, though they are associated with an organization, but they are also running their professional communities as well. Now, industry giants, they have launched virtual communities and among other things, strengthen their brands, generate buzz, and increase loyalty among customers. Some of the main motives which they have. Now, considering the importance of communities, as I was saying, that our today's session is dedicated on this subject. And my panelists for today are leaders from organizations, individuals who are successfully running their own communities, and independent community leaders as well. So before I jump on to the topics for today's discussion, I'll run around the table and let our panelists introduce themselves and their community, because the passion which they bring in, I'm sure I cannot infuse that while I am describing and giving a gist of the communities which they are running. So we'll start with you, Richa.
Sure. Hi, guys. It's always fun to get onto a panel discussion around communities, because anybody who is a community leader or believes in the power of it loves talking about it. We will find every second of it to convince you to start your own community, because community is always not about competition but collaboration. So I think on that note, it's great to connect with like-minded people on a discussion that is so cool. And I hope some of you take the pointers and start your own community, because that will be the best takeaway from this session. A little bit about me. I am Richa, in case you don't know or the screen is blurry for you. I've been running Blog Chatter for the last 7 years. It's a platform for bloggers and social media enthusiasts. I was blogging for almost a decade, and I was fortunate enough to be among some of the popular names in the country. But I felt like there was something lacking in the blogging ecosystem. I just wanted to create a platform where people could come, learn, exchange, and get going. I don't believe community should retain people. If the merit is in 5 months, it's okay. But we were just lucky that people stayed back. We grew. We started working with brands to sketch campaigns that were not singularly influencer outreach, that had advocacy, that had community, that had more elements to it. But yes, at heart, we are still a community of bloggers who just love and love talking to each other. And as the conversation flows, more thoughts on Blog Chatter and its journey, but over to the rest of you now.
Thank you, Richa, for the introduction. And moving on to Sriram. Sriram, over to you. And what is HR Tech all about?
Thank you, Shika and Gio, for having me here. HR Tech to me is a product that's very, very close to my heart. After about 18 years of experience being a human resource professional, I really felt that my ikigai was to enable um, HR folks to adopt technology and analytics in a larger way. There's this constant chatter amongst the HR teams, right? We don't have a seat at the decision making table. Obviously, yes, because we are not leveraging tech and data as much as others, right? We need to drive efficiency and productivity. We need to talk about finance, numbers, data. We need to look at the bigger picture and not just on operations. We need to look at revenues, not just saving costs for the organization. So it's a different outlook that the HR teams need to have, and that's why the last 5 years, we have now a thriving community of over 10,000 plus HR professionals who really like to adopt tech and data. And this is a community that is spread across the globe, but predominantly in Asia Pacific and Middle East. We started off in Singapore 5 years back. Now I'm based out of Dubai. So we are expanding our wings slowly and steadily. Thank you again, Shika.
Thank you, Sriram. Over to you, Richita.
Hi, thank you so much, Shikha. So I'm Ruchita, and I run a community called First Moms Club. I started it back in 2010 when I think community or Facebook groups as a feature had just come on to Facebook. And I think it started because I was a mother who wanted to connect with fellow mothers. So it was like a very personal attempt to connect with mothers and figure out that I'm not the only one who's going through this. It's very normal. And then it kind of just organically grew. I'm an ex-advertising professional, and I realized that there is more to it. And there's so much more that we can do with brands, with each other. And I was always very, very clear that I wanted to be an online community. And like Richa said, always happy to have people come and go. It should be easy come, easy go. It should not become a cult. It should purely stay a community. And I think people appreciated that. I also focused a lot on the woman behind the mother, because that's what in India, when you get in to become a parent, it all becomes about the child, and the mother, the woman behind the mother is kind of forgotten, her ambitions, her dreams. So my focus is, like I said, there are enough people talking about what you can do with your child and how you can become a genius. I want to talk about what you can do with yourself, how you can be different, how you can still be the woman or the girl that you wanted to be. And over the years, we did many online and offline associations. We did events. And I think I'm a little different from the group out here, because currently we're kind of reinventing ourselves. And I think I'll share that as we go along. So thank you once again, Shikha, for having me. And I'm really excited to share my news and my experience of running a community.
Yep, you rightly said that, Ruchita. This is another angle, right, which we are going to explore in the later part of a discussion. That, yeah, you start a community, you make sure that it reaches to a level, and then after that, once the goals or probably you can say the objectives have been accomplished, then what? So I think the then what we are going to be exploring more further with you, because of course the saturation point comes in any part of, if I talk in course about the marketing activities, if I'm looking at that particular angle for a community. So yes, we are super interested to hear then what part. Okay, so moving on to you, Rohit.
Thanks, Shikha. Happy to be a part of this panel. Great introductions, everybody. About myself, I have been in SaaS and marketing for the past decade. I only know this. I only if SaaS is not going to be there, I don't know what I'll do with my life. So, in fact, that was one of the reasons why this began. I run a community along with a couple of my friends. I run a community of SaaS professionals, which is SaaS is software as a service, which is basically software based on the cloud. And we were the quote unquote first generation SaaS marketers. So that basically means we figured it out on the way that, okay, this works here, this works here. Okay, so this should work in SaaS because there's some essence of similarity. And then we got a lot of inbound queries sir, how do we do this? Rohit, how do we do this? And so on. And we just let out the and let the information be for the people who came along the way. And then it became unsustainable because how many queries can you really handle? So we basically figured that, okay, maybe this is something bigger than personal DMs on LinkedIn. Maybe we need to create a place where there is bigger, more access to more people like us, and including us, obviously. And we need to democratize this information in a way that we make the game bigger for all people in SaaS, and whatever we have figured out, whatever little we know about our careers and about SaaS marketing, we did that. We had internal goal of saying, hey, how big SaaS can be, how big a SaaS, like such a niche community can be. We started with an internal goal of 500 people. Within a year and a half, we were sitting at 3,000 people, and that's where it is right now. And yeah, it's a fun place to be. So whoever is in SaaS or tech, marketing, or any other function, we don't restrict it, because a lot of people want to learn by osmosis as well. So if you are in tech and around, you are most welcome to join it. It's absolutely free, and most probably it always will be. So yeah, that's about me. That's about the community. The community name is S11S, by the way.
Yes, S11S. And then your punchline is also that, Rohit, thoda magic, thoda SaaS, right? If I'm not wrong.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was about that, because I saw a lot of people writing on their LinkedIn headline that award-winning marketer, top B2B marketer, so much of SaaS and so on. And I was like, you just cannot be just one thing, right? There has to be so many things that make you. So it was a drop of a hat. I figured out, like there has to be some magic in people, right? So that's where, like, it's half of me is maybe SaaS, but the other half is real magic. Just a fun thing to do.
I have to crack a very bad joke because I have to. So you bring the SaaS and Ruchita brings the Bahu to the table. I just have to.
I was hoping for SaaS, but I will take that. That's not. I can live with that.
In my defense, I've become a new parent, so I also have my fair share of dad jokes, and you'll have to excuse me on that.
You need humor and bad jokes to survive the early years of parenting.
That's a separate panel.
That is an interesting thing. Trust me, I never thought about that. For us, it's always of SaaS, CPaaS, UCaaS. We are always into that kind of terminology, the way we speak it. So yeah, I mean, thanks for bringing the SaaS into the SaaS. Okay. Okay. So I think Rohit, I would really like to pick up the thought which you just mentioned about bringing the magic, right? And then my first question will go to Ruchita. You started the community, right? And of course there must be a lot of magic behind that. There must be a lot of energy which came across, and then you took it from the downward curve up to the upward. You stabilize, you might be having your goals, etc. But what were the key drivers when you started with the community? And did you start out with charting a particular goal or certain objectives, like being from the marketing industry? Did you have that in your mind, or it was purely from a personal angle, Ruchita?
So like I mentioned, it was totally from a personal angle. I think I was just first among my friends to become a parent. And you know how it is with our generation. I mean, now I feel old, but yeah, back then, it would be peer to peer. You would ask your friend, and it was not like the digital world was exploding, so to speak. So you were checking Google, or you weren't even waiting to ask your bua, masi, dadi, ke kya karna hai, parenting. You want to check with your friend who's probably just had a baby 6 months ago or 3 months ago, because you want to do what's cool, what is relevant now, and what's kind of in, when it comes to what stuff to buy. So I essentially just started the community to connect with my friends, because I thought instead of answering 10, 12 people, let me start a group. And Facebook had this feature, and I said it just makes it easier. And also I realized that, like I mentioned earlier, we take ourselves too seriously. It all becomes about the child. And I just thought that, and motherhood can be a very, very lonely journey, and it's not always easy. There is postpartum depression. There's all kind of complications, and it's a different journey for everybody, So I just thought that I needed to inject a little bit of humor in it, and I thought make it fun because, like they say, the days are long but the years are short, and that's what parenting is, So I just thought that let me not take it so seriously, and like let's not make it sound like, oh my god, I'm producing this next kid who will go to Harvard, from day one, and like let's talk about ourselves. So it purely started from a personal angle, and actually just, but I think my friends kind of found it relevant. They started enjoying it. They started adding moms, and we kind of just grew. And then we had like thousands of moms, Indian moms across 100 countries, and as it was growing within the first 4-5 years, I realized, oh my god, this has great potential. This is a place which can do so much for each other. I mean, there was already people, moms helping each other, moms who were making offline connections because of this. Because I'm from advertising, I realized that brands could actually reach out and connect with the true mom. And this is back when there was no influencer game happening or anything. So I'm not talking about mom saying, oh, this is such a great product because they're getting it for free, but actually, doing market research. For example, like we would work with diaper brands where we would sample with 100 moms across, say, 20 cities, and they would give that real mom ka feedback ki, this night diaper does not work. It doesn't work for 5 hours, and you're saying it works for 10 hours, which is what the brand is looking for. So things like that, where I thought there's a lot of stuff that we can do, which is not just on the face of it or tagging each other and saying hashtag this and hashtag that. So we did enough of that, and it purely started with that. And I think I just kind of realized the potential of community as I grew it, as the community grew. And I also realized that, when you run a community, unlike, say, a person who's running Instagram page, or other handle, or an influencer, it has got to do with advocates. You need people who believe in it, who feel like they belong to it, and that's the feeling. While I might be the conscious keeper or the custodian, but there have to be enough people who are on the same wavelength. You have to be a little strict about the certain rules. They can't do certain things. So as we grew, all that evolved and that developed, you have to be extremely consistent with what you put out there to stand out. Maybe you have to be creative. Now, quite often creativity is not always flowing, so that could ebb and hem, but you have to be consistent, so you have to. And when you're running a community for mothers, you have to have compassion. So all these things I kind of just learned on the job. And as I learned, I realized that there's so much you can do. We kind of grew, we did different things. We started connecting offline. We did a lot of online events. And I think we added so much value to the moms, and moms realized that. And so, it became in such a way that I did not even have to do much, where there were moms who believed in it and have been on this community for so many years, where they became the gatekeepers, or they kind of controlled the there was spamming, or there was any kind of rubbish that kind of happened and which went against the rules. They were the first ones to step in before I could, which was a great feeling, because I felt like, okay, finally, like there's this, and that's an amazing feeling, that there are other people who believe in it as much as you do and have this sense of ownership. And I think that's what most people don't get it. Like, while I understand you run a community, like how I started, and while you run for a brand, but I think you have to be very clear from day one. You can't say, oh, this is a pure community, and then seed some content or seed some brand thing and then say, wo nahi chalta hai. In communities like that, it doesn't work like that, and you are bound to fail. It will not going to run, so you have to be very, very honest, and people can see that, So I think I kept it very real. I did not pretend, what the community was, and also myself, like, because I was going through a similar journey. It was about moms who were going through similar journeys, at whatever stage your child was. And so I think the magic was just being authentic, more than anything else. And I think that worked for us. And keeping the humor alive, I think, because I personally find like laughter is the best medicine. So I just thought, like, everybody should just chill. This is an online friend that you have. You come here, you chill, and you go back. Like, there, don't take yourself so seriously, and it'll be all good. Like, parenting is like one of the most funnest thing you can do. Don't let it bog you down more than anything else, So yeah, I think just authenticity was what I would think was our, magic, so to speak.
Yep. Thank you, Ruchita, for that. I do have a fun question for you, on which I'll come back to you at a later stage. But yeah, I think of course, being authentic, being real, and then you feel that you have achieved the objective when your fellow community members are also along the line. You have made a
Yeah.
tribe for that particular one
Yes.
common objective. Yeah. Moving on to you, Sriram. You are into HR tech space. Of course, I would not say it's a niche industry, but it's a very professional driven wherein people are coming for learning, education, empowering themselves, and then keeping up to date with what is happening into the industry, and of course, looking for career growth as well. Now, for you and for your team, what is the biggest challenge which you have come across to drive the engagement, Sriram? How do you tackle that, or your team? Is there any kind of framework which you follow?
Yeah, there are two aspects to it. Number one is balancing diverse needs, right? So if you take human resources as a function, you probably have strategic workforce planning, talent attraction, talent acquisition, employee engagement, mental health and wellness, compensation planning, benefits, learning and development, now even alumni management as a tool, right? People are now focusing on getting back folks who are probably what you call boomeranging. So when you look at it, the people coming onto the platform are essentially looking for a specific need, and that becomes very critical. So you need to cater to all of their needs. So balancing diverse needs is a big challenge. Number two is actually overcoming a lot of technology barrier, right? I always keep saying, HR folks always tend to stay a step back when it comes to tech and analytics, right? And when you have a virtual platform, when you have a technology driven platform where communication happens through webinars, workshops, online masterclass sessions, or online polls and forums, and some of those, it's very difficult to keep the interest levels on, sustain the momentum. People like face-to-face interaction, more specifically HR folks, right? They talk about that connectedness with the employees, right? So they do not like too much of virtual interactions. So to maintain the interest levels, sustain the momentum in an online format is the key challenge. So these two, balancing diverse needs, number two, keeping the interest levels in a virtual environment, those are the two factors that we keep always challenging to us.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I think engagement, which I've actually heard a lot, and of course, which we also face while we are conducting our events as well. And of course, I think it's one of the core challenge of any of the marketer, when that how do you want to keep your either consumers, prospects, or your audience engaged, right? So that's the key. And now, moving on to you, Rohit, I've got a question for you that you are running S117, right? And then you are also a part of an organization. Did it ever come to you, or that from an organization perspective as well, there should be some kind of community which should be started, or you would only like to keep it for, you can say, for SaaS people or for professionals? You would not like to limit it to a particular function. The reason why I'm asking you is because, again, you're associated with an organization. I believe you've already founded that. So how do you kind of create the kind of balance that, okay, this is only for the professionals, this is how we are doing that, but okay, this is the industry line in which I am in. So have you thought about it, or you have consciously made a decision that no, for at Kula, so we're not going to be planning any kind of community?
Honestly, if you pick any brand right now and if you ask whoever runs it, then do you want a community? I think no one in this world will turn that down, because wanting a community is everybody wants that. Who doesn't want like a bunch of raving fans standing behind the brand, right? But the thing is, can you build a community around your brand right now? That's the bigger question to answer, because there can always be themes, there can always be issues and challenges that you can rally people behind, but you have to make that conscious decision. What do you want to get out of that community? For a non-branded community, it's very easy, because we have no ulterior motive. We are uh, very vulnerable, very authentic, very non-promotional, and all of that. With brand communities or with company associated communities, there's always an angle of monetization or revenue that comes into picture. With Kula, in fact, we have had this internal discussion as well that we need a community, and in fact, we have taken very small steps towards that. So we have started evangelizing the offline bit right now, where so we are headquartered in Singapore right now. So we figured that what are those things that we can do in Singapore that would bring the talent folks together. So we held like a event, like a small dinner of sorts, where we brought around 50 recruiters uh, from multiple brands together in Singapore. In India, we figured out there are so many communities already doing it. So we as a brand, since we had that budget, we went ahead and sponsored them. So we are doing a hybrid approach right now, because see, the reason of forming a community should not be to create advocates of a brand, or should be like an ulterior motive to that community. The only reason why any community should be founded is you really want the upliftment of the community members in some way or the other, right? So does it really matter if they are in your Slack group or your event calendar or something like that, or are you really working towards the upliftment or making the game bigger, for that matter, for the entire community? Because if you're doing that, I think people remember you, people will rally behind you, even if you're not in that room or a part of that conversation, people will bring you in. So I think we need to broaden the definition of community for a brand, and not just get people in a Slack community and just like slap the name of that brand over it and call it a community. I think that is how I really think. And yes, one day when I see that there are people talking about Kula while we are not actually encouraging that conversation, I'll give them a place to just hang around with each other and talk the same thing in that room. Might be virtual, might be real, might be something like that, but that is how I think. You cannot brute force a community to a brand. It has to be very organic. It has to be people who are very, very energetic and very enthusiastic about a particular thing that they need to talk about. All you can do is foster that relationship and give them a place, a common place where they can come along and talk the same thing that they were talking anyways. I think that is the only way you can really build a long lasting organic community around anything for that matter. So that's my thought
Yes,
process.
no, I think I'm pretty aligned to that, Rohit, because it's all about when there is a need to give them a place to have a conversation, then that probably place is provided. Or sometimes I have seen those kind of situations wherein the brands, they do not have to do that, but there are brand loyalists around that who go ahead and create those kind of communities on their own. And then, of course, later on the brands come and they say that, let's partner, or probably let's give it a better place, etc. So, yeah, moving on to you, Richa. The kind of communities which I am part of, and which my fellow members, and then of course you might be for some different communities, wherein we are going basically to have a conversation in a safe zone. For example, when you're facing a challenge and you're not able to uh, ask that particular question, probably on a LinkedIn or an open forum like any other digital channel. So did you also face that kind of similar scenario, either from industry bloggers or freelance bloggers, and how are they using blog chatter? So this is what I wanted to understand, and of course our audience as well, that what is the kind of safe zone you are providing through your community?
So I think how Ruchita mentioned that being a mother is very lonely, right? It's even more lonely to be a content creator, because you are sitting behind a laptop, right? Creating content, and you expect that when it gets published, there will be these millions of views that will suddenly land up, but it doesn't. The reality is very different, right? So, in fact, one of my favorite anecdotes before I started Blog Chatter was that I love reading, like as a person, and it sounds very, I don't know, counterintuitive. I'm not a video person even today. So I read a lot. So automatically my consumption of blogs has always been very high. So before I started Blog Chatter, I used to read this blogger from Pune, which is where I am, and I used to love reading her. She didn't know, and I used to go and I used to read her new articles, and then I used to be very happy reading her. One day I realized that she's not posted. She's not posted for a week. She's not posted for 2 months. And eventually it was in 6 months that I concluded that the motivation for her to continue has gone. because maybe I was literally one of a few readers who would leave a comment, who would like, etc. And that, I think, turned out to be I think that definitely impacted me, because I started thinking about the fact that how could I save her? What was it that I could have done differently as a reader to have held her back? And that's why at Blog Chatter, I still have my favorite input to my team, that we are here to save that one blogger who in the middle of the night decides this is not worth it. That's it. We just have to make it worth it for that person to publish that post and get that community. That's it. That's been my only goal. I've had people send me messages, we've had replies on emails, I've met people who've hugged me and told me how they managed to get out of a mental health crisis because they continued writing because there was community. I have actually heard people tell me that they had a terrible time in the lockdown, and sometimes just that 1 hour when we would come online and we would interact with everyone around content, they had fun. So I feel it's even more difficult, right? Parenting. You understand being a SaaS professional. You understand being what it is like an HR professional, because there's enough literature and conversation around it. Who understands what it is like to be this content creator sitting alone? You know, your mom is screaming that laptop pe baithe rehte ho pure din, kya karte ho yahan par? You know, and I've heard statements like that. When we give people paid campaigns, they've said stuff like that to me. That, you know what, my family respects me now. They think I don't waste my time on the internet. So that's it. Still, it's 7 years and counting.
Yeah, Rich.
No, so I'd like to add, Richa, something. You said that, the bloggers have to be read and you think there'll be million views. I don't know whether you've seen this movie of Glenn Close called The Wife, and she's a aspiring writer. Her husband is a more famous writer, and she says something like a writer has to write, and the editor says a writer has to be read. And and it's a lovely line, because it's not about you writing, but you will only become a famous writer if people are reading your stuff, and that's so true.
That is so cool, because when I take workshops and people always are like, we just like to write, we don't want to think about SEO, we don't want to think about social media, it sucks to be all of this. I'm like, then it's okay, write on a Microsoft Word document. Isn't that serving purpose alone?
Yeah.
Why do you have to come online and publish? You need that validation, right? You need it. Then work towards it. Add 30% of your time to social media and all the jing bangs that come with it. But
yeah. So what I was saying was, Richard, like that one incident of yours, which you just quoted, actually gave me goosebumps. So yeah, I think with each community, I'm sure you all had such kind of incidents wherein it gave you greater motivation and passion and belief that yes, there is something which we are doing right. That's okay, even if the numbers are not like that which you are aiming for. And I think for most of the time, when you all would have started, the numbers would not have mattered, right? Yeah. It's all about the passion for that one particular subject and or for that one particular industry which actually drove you towards that. But I think moving on towards the growth path, wherein we saw about that, how the community grow, how actually what was the birth reason for that particular community. Now I would really like to understand the angle wherein we are talking about the growth of that particular community in terms of driving the interaction, making sure that the audience is engaged. And herein, I would really like to bring in the angle of virtual event technology. I would like to start with you, Rohit, wherein in your community as well and in another community as well, I have seen something called as a shameless plug. There is always this kind of section wherein, of course, one is the community managers who are promoting the events which they are doing for the members, but there is something called as this particular section wherein community members are also allowed to post the kind of either events or the kind of resources which they have to share with the audience members. How do you maintain this kind of balance, Rohit? Because now, of course, we are into this kind of hybrid world wherein the personal meetup and the virtual events are going hand in hand. I really have that kind of belief, and of course, the industry standards also say that it's more towards a hybrid world. How you as a community, you can say the founding member, you are doing that. and then also maintaining a kind of balance that it doesn't go haywire?
So first thing first about the shameless plug thing. Our community is 100% non-promotional. Even us who basically built this with our own hands, we are not allowed to promote our own stuff. We cannot even say that, guys, I posted this new blog. Would you check it out? Nothing like that. Because give marketers the free rein and they will ruin everything. I like to believe that the marketers are the worst of humankind when it comes to exploiting a certain platform or a channel. So we do not allow that because we know our tribe very well. So the shameless plug was basically, hey, but we still need and want to support fellow community members. So there must be a weekend where you have a couple of hours and you want to see, hey, what are my fellow marketers up to? So there can be a place where you can just scroll and figure out the things that you like and maybe read a newsletter by a fellow marketer or something like support or just like clean-heartedly support them. So all of that, and that is why shameless plug exists. And that has been pretty successful. People have really appreciated it and so on. So that was the part. Now coming to the offline and online mix of engagement, we started the community in a COVID world. So we never thought that offline engagement can come back to our lives because we basically had given up on life, right? All of us cumulatively as a generation. So we figured, okay, let's start with the offline engagement. In fact, the interesting trivia about S1 is it actually started as a clubhouse room where we figured that let's just come online on a Saturday evening because apparently you guys did something on Saturday, but now you cannot. So once a month we'll convene and we'll rant the shit out of SaaS and marketing, like everything that we hate about the current world, because you need to have a safe space to voice it out. And Clubhouse was the perfect thing because you cannot record it, you cannot document it, and everybody was happy about just ranting about why wouldn't founders understand marketing, why would the sales guy would have like a say in my campaign, why, and so on and so forth. And it became like a rage, like people just coming in and just voicing their opinion out, having pseudonyms, having their real names, whatever it didn't matter until unless you were being respectful in terms of language and topic. It's okay. So that translated into the community part. In fact, one of the biggest and the most engaged channel on our Slack community is the S11S Anonymous, where you just wear a cape, a mask, and just pour your heart out. Obviously, you don't have to abuse and all of that basic hygiene in place. So that becomes like an online engagement part. And on the serious part, what we have done is we have continued the Clubhouse session in a freewheeling LinkedIn audio live kind of a place for that. So if you still have rants, obviously you can come and share and talk about the latest news and maybe abuse AI on why it is taking away your jobs and so on. So that is still there. But then we also figured out that as senior folks in this industry, we also have this responsibility of giving that entire cause that we started with this community, that we need to give back. We need to bring our friends because we have those contacts of global marketers sitting in some and doing some crazy work. We know personally that guy is really good. That girl has like really kicked ass. I'm sorry for the language, but yeah, like really been amazing at her job. So we bring those people. Like we do like something like this for 1 hour. We go really deep into a topic, exactly say, hey, this is where I put my $20 and got $50 back, like that kind of a tactical bit. And we do that every month. That happens virtually for a reason, because it has to have access across the globe, and that's the bigger thing that the virtual events bring in. And then obviously every quarter we meet in different cities. There are multiple city chapters, there are multiple city leaders. At times there are meetups happening that even we don't know that, okay, some S1 meetup happened and they share photographs that, hey, we met, this is what we talked, and stuff like that. But the entire online thing has continued from the very beginning and does continue. And the biggest advantage is we never cared where you are based out of, and that is the flexibility that the online events and like online experience in general has provided and given us that advantage. So that's the kind of playbook that we run for overall engagement on S1.
Yep. Sounds good, Rohit. Moving on to you, Sriram, wherein we talked about, of course, S117 with respect to the online events. Now, of course, when you look at the HR tech model, Shriyam, I do believe that you have two kind of models when we are talking about the event technology growing the community, and then of course the aspects related to HR tech. So, can you give us more insights about that? What are the kind of different virtual events, whether it's in the form of webinars, masterclass, paid, free, only for members you have run across, and which model worked really best for your community?
So there are a lot of aspects that we still are trying to find out, right? For example, when you do a webinar across Asia Pacific and Middle East, so we are straddling multiple time zones, right? So LinkedIn will say Wednesday and Thursday is the perfect time to do a webinar, right? What day and what time when you're doing multiple. I mean, the fun is when you have people from 10 countries, 15 countries actually participating in an online event, but figuring out the right time, right day. A Friday is probably a working day in Dubai, but a holiday in Riyadh. Multiple concepts. So one is when we do an online event, what's the time? What's the date? What's the time, right? 30 minutes. So we have done 30 minutes. We have done 1 hour. We have done 90 minutes, 120 minutes. Our online workshops sometimes are 180 hours, 180 minutes. So we have tried to figure it out. We try to capture feedback. Now we kind of know which will work for how long, what's the duration, and all of those. But right now, off late, right, we are not able to plan any 100% in-person workshops or in-person sessions. It's now becoming hybrid, right? There are people who will definitely say, I would prefer to log in virtually, right? And they are getting used to it. So now the baseline is hybrid, right? And nothing is 100% in person, or nothing is 100% virtual. So that brings an additional complexity, because there's a large conference room where there are 30-40 people, and then there's a small screen where there are 100 people in the screen, and these people start talking together amongst themselves, and people don't feel part of the entire gathering. So now that's the next step, right? I mean, how do we ensure online and an offline mix can really bring in that so these are things, Shika. These are challenges we are facing in on a daily basis. I don't have an answer, but we are trying to come up, do variations to all of these formats.
Yep. Thank you, Sriram.
Yeah, so just to add, right? I mean, the Geo platform. We've tried the Zoom webinar, the Zoom meeting, right? Allowing folks to participate, or giving. I mean, as Rohit said, completely ensuring that people do not have any rights to turn on their camera or mic. Which works better? We really don't know. I think we just have to keep toggling with
Yep.
it.
Okay. Moving on to you, Richard, about the concept of virtual event technology. And then, as we were talking about, we have got some interesting questions reserved for Ruchita. Richard, for your community, when you're running virtual events, did you focus more towards the topics related to the blogging, content management, the workshops, industry trends, etc.? Or is it more suited, or you can say, is there kind of a trend wherein it's all about the personal connection, getting together, giving them kind of a safe zone wherein they come and discuss about, like as Rohit was saying, their rants, and then what is the thing which is bothering them, and then how they can come ahead of the writer's block?
Okay, so I think on the subject of growth, right? One thing I've learned through 7 years is you are an entertainer for your community. So you cannot bore them, right? You will have to reinvent yourself a million times. You will have to remind them this particular campaign was great last month, it is no longer live, so that they are excited and they are, always looking forward to what's coming up new. So even for our online events, to say, we have used everything that you spoke about. We've used having an online party. We every year have a new year party which is online, right? We send out we send out these cups and mugs, and they all have to like bring their own beverages. So we have this whole funny take that you can bring a wine, you can bring your chai, or you can bring a glass of water, lemonade, whatever you want. And we have these buzzing online parties. We bring in like entertainers, we have spoken poetry, then we have games and all of that. So that's there, right? Then we've also used some of these things, such as, yes, discussing, say, an SEO workshop, blogging workshop. So that becomes very formal. We'll have a panel such as this. And we've used these online events extensively for brands. So which is where is been our biggest success, right? That we've used online events so much for brands that it's actually become one of our most popular properties with them. So earlier we used to give these online events like part of like a larger proposal, and we'd say, okay, we'll have say 10 bloggers, and we'll do one live event, and we then have other conversations. It became so popular during COVID that we've done campaigns which had like 15 live sessions spread over a period of 3 months. So, which just was like a live panel or an online event conversation. And that's twofold. One, every brand today needs to speak to the consumer directly. COVID had shut all doors for that, right? How to the consumer now? I have my HCP, I have my KOL, I have my brand manager. They want to interact, they want to have these meetups. So we're like, fine, let's have these conversations online. Let's get a moderator in picture, etc. But let's make it interactive. Let us have the community also come on screen. Let them also speak to you directly, so that that look and feel remains. Secondly, complex narratives, right? We work a lot with pharma. So complex narratives require these conversations. You cannot simply let it to, say, the community to understand. Say you're talking about certain range of vaccines, you need to hear it from the doctor, right? You need to have those questions answered. So online events have become like this, I would say, like this basket of different ideas that we've been using. And we have like a quarterly sort of an AGM of sorts with the community, in which we send out a survey in advance. We tell them that this is what we want to discuss, why don't you put it in, like what are your thoughts, etc. We'll also give them a formal update that last survey, these are the X number of things you asked for, these are the kind of things we've given. Like I said, you cannot bore the community. The only growth hack for a community is that the same trick will not work twice. So that's how you got to
Yeah, got it. I think that's where Ruchita comes into the picture, right? So, wherein we are talking about the consistency in the entertainment, bringing in the uniqueness, and then there is a point wherein you say that now what? Should we go ahead? Should we take a pause? So over to you, Ruchita. That what was that particular movement? Was that the data, the analytics? Sorry, being a marketer, I mean, it's all about the data and analytics is my head. But what drove you to that particular point wherein you decided that, yeah, this is a point wherein I would like to take a pause and then restructure the entire game plan, the strategy. And now I would like to see my community in this particular light. So, of course, that's my assumption. But over to you. What was
So couple of things I think just came together. One of the things was that when I started the community, it was for young mothers, okay, and this was in 2010. The world has changed now, okay. The new mothers don't exist on Facebook, okay. They are all on Instagram. Instagram is not a community. I mean, as much as you might say my Insta family and all that rubbish, it's not. I mean, I'm being very honest. It's an influencer led. It's very American. It's me, what I'm doing, look what I do. It's like that. So there was no young mom who we wanted to talk to, right? There are all, I mean, I was a young mom who now have teenage boys or, whatever. So there was that. Of course, the data and analytics that I get from Facebook was giving me that insight in the engagement that was there. While we do have our platform on Instagram and stuff like that, but I could see that there was a shift, right? Because you will not find this young mom over there. Because today, even if you're a young mom who is maybe had a baby 6 months ago, she will become an influencer and say, I will tell you how to bring up your baby, on Instagram. So the world is completely changing. So I realized that shift was happening. And if I'm completely honest, I don't think Facebook itself realized the power of Facebook groups. They realized it very, very late. They took their own sweet time, and I still feel they're not doing what they should have done. For instance, this anonymous thing that Rohit mentioned, we actually launched an app which had an anonymous feature, because I realized that as women, as mothers, we needed these safe spaces to share our most intimate secrets, to rant, could be about SAS or whatever. So, I actually, but I realized shifting people from a platform to another is a big challenge, right? Anonymous posting on Facebook group only came about in the last 1.5, 2 years. But we had done it about 5 years ago, where we realized, let's do that, let's kind of create a safe space for them, which did really well. So, I realized that Facebook was not doing enough to actually push this, whether it was not helping the Facebook group admins to monetize or to meaningfully engage with brands. So for me, even when I did some engagements, I would always see, what is it a win-win situation for the mom and the brand. It has to a value add, or it should give something to both. It's not just the marketer or the brand that's getting. I want the mom also to feel that her opinion or her feedback on a research or anything makes sense to her, whether she's she's not going to do it again, because she's really taking out that time, ignoring her kid for that when he asks, and then giving you that time. So I think Facebook is took its own time, and now, like, the moment has kind of passed. And I think everything has a shelf life, and like I said, that I think you cannot keep, like, the same idea won't work twice, like Richa said, and that's the thing. So I think it was time for us to kind of, we did a lot of stuff meaningfully. We were able to actually work through COVID to create a book. So we actually launched a book where we worked with over 100 moms who had contributed motherhood stories, and we were able to work on it through COVID and publish it last year in July. So that was a great high for everybody, and again, that was a collaborative thing. It's, imagine if the online community was a tangible thing, that would be our book. So it's called Khichdi for the Desi Mom Soul. So there are motherhood stories that mothers have shared, and these are not professional writers. These are, and they're raw, they're sentimental, they're funny. So we wanted to get the flavor of the community in a book, and there are plans to come, because everybody liked it so much and it did well. So we said, okay, we'll come up with a volume 2 with it. So I think, like she said, you have to do new things, you have to reinvent yourself. And I realized that who are we talking to? We want to talk to the new mom, but the new mom is not there on the platform, so now who do we talk to? So that's why we've taken this time to kind of reinvent. And that's the good thing about social media, right? You can be off for 6 months and 1 year, and you do something and it could go viral suddenly, like, that's a good and bad thing. So you might be forgotten for a while, but you can always bounce back, because there's something that you do which is completely different, and you can be relevant once again. So I think, so I like to call it my online sabbatical right now. And and like I always say, I don't know what I'll do next, but I always know what I won't do next, what I definitely won't do. So I will not cheapen my community. I will not, have brands generally selling stuff and not being authentic. So, and I said, okay, I need to pause. I need to figure out, and I need to, I had a lot of disappointed mothers, and like, why are you doing this? And please don't do this and stuff like that. But you have to look at the larger picture. You have to go back and, get out of that and say, okay, no, we need to reinvent ourselves. And you sometimes need time. You've been doing it relentlessly for 12 years. So there's also that fatigue that, seeps in, and you have to give yourself that mental space to create. You can't do it because you're so lost, you're like in that you're just kind of limiting your view. So yeah, so there were all these things that kind of led me to say, maybe also COVID, it makes you rethink on many things in what you're doing in life, and kind of doing that. But I'm so glad we could work on the book and kind of have a purpose. My team had a purpose to work on. The mothers were looking forward to being co-authors in a book. So I think that was really amazing.
And I believe from this entire conversation, one thing which is standing out, Ruchita, is that how you were able to disassociate yourself with the thing which you have created. So, of course, I'm sure it would have taken a lot of energy, a lot of persistence from your own side. And I'm sure it goes with the founders as well, because they are creating something. There is a brand, there is a product they are creating, and suddenly, or I would not say suddenly, but when they take this step that now is the time to move on. So moving on, this particular duration, I believe it's really difficult. And you also have to step back, keeping the emotions out of it, that whether it is practical enough, whether it will make sense, and whether you are able to do wholeheartedly onto that or not. So I think there's an you can say very deep thought involved in that as well, Ruchita. And as you rightly said, that there is a shelf life for everything. Because some of the communities which I'm also a part of, that wherein we have got more than 40,000, 50,000 members, and now the community the founders, they are moving on to some smaller communities with a very specific subject, which now they feel deeply about it. Like as you rightly said, that 12 years back this was relevant, but now when you know, after a decade you are moving on, then you feel that okay, now you have to move with the trends, or you know what is relevant to you right now and for the community which you will be building. So if we have this
sorry, I would also like to add one more thing is, you know, the online world has changed. You know what, I don't know, like things that were okay back 10 years ago or 12 years ago are not so okay. People have become far more sensitive. People, and especially when you're running a community for mothers, the emotions run very high, you know. Sometimes the same joke is taken very personally. So, you know, religion has become one topic which becomes extremely sensitive, you know. So you have to be, like I always say, there's content, there's creativity, there's compassion, there's consistency to run a community. Now you have to be careful. You're careful of what you're saying. You have to be very, very careful. And I'm being really honest, because you know, you're observing, because I think to be a good community leader or a head, you have to be very observant. You have to look at what people are talking. You have to take cues from that, and kind of, you know, mold your content around it. What is the hot topic? What do moms want to know? You know, and that's what you have to be very observant. You have to, like, people watch in that sense, you know. So I think now everybody who runs a community has to be very, very careful on what they say, and what they believe in, and you know, and how they come across. So the times have changed. Actually, it's actually far more difficult. I think anybody who wants to start a community right now, I would say it's far more difficult than it was back then. You know, a lot of things flew by, but not anymore.
But I have a counter view to that. You know, I think communities thrive on personality. You know, sometimes what happens is that sort of conflict, that, you know, I don't agree with you, and I will come and participate in this conversation, and you know, let's have this whole chat. Like, we've created this whole conversation around the fact that Block Chatter loves chai, and anybody who's a coffee drinker, we don't like you. So, you know, we've created this whole persona that Block Chatter as a person likes chai. So all the coffee lovers in the community, we are not very, you know, we don't like you. And there's this banter that goes on, you know, like International Coffee Day. We will not put out a post because all the coffee lovers from the community will tag us, and they'll be like, we know you've not put out something, so here we are wishing you. So but having said that, I think I loved the word that you said, compassion. Because that is where a lot of community founders, I feel, slip up. Because you tend to start having these fixed mindsets about what that member should be like, what that ideal participation should look like, right? You tend to become a little possessive, you know, or you tend to become very, you know, driven in how that member should be behaving, and you forget that community has to be completely, like, you know, organic, and it has to be inspired. Until unless that person does not have the contribution on their own, they will never stick. So I think that compassion, right? Like, even in blogging, for example, we have this favorite thing that we keep saying to Blog Chatter, that because we know people take breaks in content creation, especially blogging, it's very hectic. It's not like the usual Instagrammers, right? So people take breaks from it. So then they stop interacting with Blog Chatter, and we can sense what's happening, right? Because they associate that persona with blogging, that we are a Blog Chatter member, so we've got to be blogging. So we then spin it around and say, once a Blog Chatter member, always. Once you blogged, always. So I think that they're just speaking on that bit, that somebody's not interacting because they're feeling guilty about it. So that goes a long way. But I'm very politically incorrect, Ruchita. You absolutely know. So all the careful words the hell out of me.
No, so I'm saying that because I could say things and
Then
it would not fly, and I'm the admin. Yeah, and it would get really difficult because, just I think it was like with so many women, it would get very, very sense, like conflict. The other C that would happen would be conflict. And, it was difficult to manage, but I guess you learn, and it's okay. It's part and parcel of, it's par for the course in that sense.
So, moving on to our last question, because of course I think it was a lovely discussion, and we have almost crossed an hour. But picking up on that particular bit, Ruchita and Richa, wherein you mentioned about the personality. So, Rohit and Sriram, I would really like to hear your point of view. One, Rohit, you are of course a part of the HR tech industry, but then you're also having this community totally for you can say professional SaaS industry, etc. Did you ever feel that you can say the personality thing was getting relegated into your own community as well, and wherein you have to take a step back and like, no, come on, I have to take a step back. It's all about the members. It's all about the conversations. It's all about one common objective wherein they are coming and sharing about their insights, their learning, and then they are also caring about the other community members as well. Did it ever happen to you, Rohit?
No, actually, I'm on Richa's side of the debate here because I think there is a lot of sameness out there. Everything, like almost every brand is treading so carefully that it becomes boring to death. And the only way that you can actually bring a difference by being an individual is having an opinion. And the biggest thing that I'll tell you that has worked in my favor, and it is by accident. Like I stopped wearing a plot armor. I just became very, very, very authentic. So, for example, if you meet me in real life, you meet me on LinkedIn, you say hi on WhatsApp, it's the same person. You meet me in my community, it's the same person. Like you will not feel that, okay, why is this Rohit not there on Slack or something like that. It's always the same person. And in fact, I try to be the same personality all across instead of inhibiting myself to I try to keep it more in the conversation and in everything else. In fact, one of the key things that we have done is none of our community guidelines, so as to say, is created in solitude by the founders. It was always crowdsourced. Like, okay, guys, tell me what do you think is the right way to go about it. So, for example, the first sponsorship that we got, so it was very organic. Somebody came in and they're like, we want to pay you for just taking our name and in like mentioning us in your newsletter and so on. And we are like, but it will give you a free pass to promote yourself, which we are not ready to do. So we just opened through an open-ended question that, guys, we are like there's a first sponsorship that has come in. How do you think we should craft the rules of sponsorship for aspirants? And because there are so many smart marketers around, we basically crowdsourced it. Even our code of conduct is crowdsourced. Like number one rule in S1 is, and there's just one rule, by the way, is don't be an a-hole. That's it. That's it. Like that's the only one rule that we have, and it's crowdsourced. Like because a lot of rules came in, and we could summarize it in one thing. So, and that is essentially, and surprisingly so, and since we are three of us, it's me and a couple of other friends. Everybody knows how we behave and what are those things that we are. So one of them is really happy-go-lucky, full of energy and all of that. I'm really snarky and sarcastic and just like having humor in everything. And then there's this third guy who just keeps us in line and everybody else in line in the community. So people even expect us to react and behave in certain manner. And we also get thrashed in the anonymous channel. They're like, oh, the founders have been paid, and then so on and then so forth. But that's all right. Like until and unless it goes beyond the bed, below the bed, it's all right. It's like, good fun is always there. So, like to summarize all of this, I would say in this digital age where everything has become everything, which basically means that every brand talks about the same thing. And in fact, in technology, it's even more difficult to differentiate yourself because you are essentially doing the same thing and in certain manner or form. So I think it's the personality of your own that you bring in the community that will actually help you differentiate rather than just being a vague blob of some fuzzy stuff. So yeah, that's where I stand.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so moving on to your last question with Sriram. Sriram, the community which you can see holding and thriving is, I would not say with a very difficult persona, but with a different kind of persona, right? We are talking about human resource. We are talking about HR tech as a community. Um, I do you feel that, or if your data and analytics are showing that, are you able to crack in with the member engagement? Are they okay? Have they accepted this kind of concept that yes, there can be community about this particular domain? Feel free, have a safe zone. Are you also seeing these kind of safe zone conversations over there as well, wherein the members from the HR tech community, from this particular industry, they are coming in, having, you can say, a kind of a fun time, or like say marketers or the kind of audience which Ruchita they have?
Okay, so ours is very different from all of these. These are essentially HR folks who are looking to adopt tech and data. They are looking for different use cases. They're looking for case studies. They're looking for feedback on certain specific products. They're looking for questions, answers to their questions on leveraging tech. So sometimes it can be quite boring for someone who comes from outside. But so ours is very, very clear, right? It is meant for those folks who are looking for more information on this, because let's take Chat GPT, and we've been there's tons of use cases and case studies now available on leveraging Chat GPT. But when you take design thinking or Chat GPT for HR, you see very few use cases, and that's the challenge. So there is a lot of collaboration that happens in the community on, hey, do I know more about it? Have you used something else? And that's exactly what we want. We want more conversations around, hey, with AI coming in, what are the new HR jobs of the future, right? What are the new HR skills of the future? So these are standard stuff. So which is basically, this is a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday community. That is how we actually define ourselves. People don't want to bother about this during the weekend. For weekend, they will go to My First Moms and Blog Chatter and so on. That's how we really focus on.
Deal. Can we sign off on this? Is there some referral code that we can send you that we can?
Why not?
Okay, sounds good. First of all, thanks a lot for you can say this wonderful session, and of course, I think it was almost 1 hour and 15 minutes. We were discussing on our most favorite topic, communities. I'm sure our audience did love the entire session as well. And as I was mentioning, this session is being broadcasted live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on our Facebook channel as well. So yes, this event is brought to you by JioEvents, and we conducted our today's panel discussion on JioEvents platform. And I do have one last question for Ruchita. Your community is called as First Moms Club. So whenever you had any dad entering that, so did you ban them? Yes or no? Or
Yeah.
yeah?
We did. Yeah. Dads were not allowed. I mean, I had many suggestions where they said, why don't you start a first dad's club? I said, yeah, सब कुछ औरत ही करेगी तो यार मतलब what will the men do? Let a dad start it. Yeah,
Let a dad start.
So I would have people say, oh, you're not inclusive and stuff like that. I was like, हाँ ठीक है यार. I mean, I stand true to what I started. Let a dad start it, and then let's see how successful they can make it. So we make sure we threw out the men of the community.
I was really tempted to ask this question in the entire panel. Did you really do that? Were the dads totally not allowed? And, just
no, that's totally not. And then we would have people like tagging, oh God, because there were some enthusiastic mothers who would add their spouse to the community, because they would be like, I'm not the only one who's feeling it. Thousands of women say the same thing. So it's more like validation. I'm not the only, woman who feels as like, or kaam karo, participate more. Like, 30 other women who are saying that. So we would have, this was all out of, like they wanted something out of their husband, but we're like, sorry, babe, this is not allowed,
That was also, I think this is what community guidelines, the founders are really clear about the objective, what they want, and whom they want it or whom they really don't want it. I really love that, Ruchita. And on that note, I'm going to end today's session, though I don't want to,
Thank
but
you.
then definitely I'll be communicating with all of you on your communities and, of course, in offline meetings as well. Richa, we should meet. We both are in Pune.
Yes, get me out of the house.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to do that.
Just don't step out. Please get me out of the house. I'm not even hybrid. I am remote like my whole life, I feel.
Sure. Okay. Have a good evening to all of you and have a great weekend. Thank you to all
Thank
of you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.